I was wondering how long it would take us to get into a semantics discussion.
Not long.
Yeah.
I don't even like the term collector. I'm just like, don't call me that.
Yeah.
Don't you call me a collector.
Yeah.
Welcome to I'd Buy That for $1, a podcast about inexpensive, common, and underappreciated records that are waiting to be rediscovered. I'm your host, Sean Hartman. I'm joined, as always, by my regular co-host, sleepwalking tea descriptivist, Jeremy Ruggles.
I will have the green tea. It is good. Like? It is tasty. Tasty.
Thank you.
Tasty.
And, of course, construction site sign designer, Peter Cook.
That's an art that is still waiting to be appreciated, much like the records we feature on this show.
Tying it all together.
I think I'm feeling high just being in this place.
What is this place, and who else is here?
This is called The Void.
And that voice from The Void is our special guest today, who just so happens to be president of the Green Jello fan club, Mr. Steve Krakow.
I used to be the president of the Ugly Kid Joe fan club, but they kicked me out, so I figured Green Jello seems...
Are there any scandalous stories from getting kicked out of that? What did you do? What did you do?
I insisted that Harry Chapin's version of Cats in the Cradle was better.
And what did Whitfield Crane say to that?
They sent me out of town on a rail.
I don't know why I know the singer of Ugly Kid Joe's name.
Oh my God.
This is how you got this job, basically.
Exactly.
Right? Yes.
That and his wealth of Tupac knowledge.
True that.
Steve, would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Besides being a big Three Little Pigs fan, right? Was that Green Jello?
That was.
Okay. Or was it Green Jelly?
It was Green Jello, but they got in legal trouble, so they had to change it to a Y with a accent over it.
I had explained it once to my girlfriend. She had no clue about any of this. I'm like, oh, you're going to find out right now.
I once had to sit through a whole VHS of Green Jello videos. So,
wow.
Yeah, I've been there.
Anyways, what was the question again?
So, but aside from that occupation, which we introduced you with, what else do you do, Steve
Well, it's funny you
Krakow?
made up a occupation because I haven't had a day job in quite some time. So I never know what to tell people my job is. I play music and I am mostly an illustrator, usually under the moniker of Plastic Crimewave.
I was going to ask if we said your nom de plume.
Yes, most of my artistic-y things go under that. I don't know. I've done a long-running sort of comic information strip in the Chicago Reader for like 15 years called Secret History of Chicago Music. So I'm a bit of a Chicago music historian, and I guess, for lack of a less pretentious word, in a music historian as well. I do a bit of music writing here and there.
What is the publication that you put out periodically? The periodical you put out periodically?
Oh, yes. I do a magazine for the last 20-something years called Galactic Zoo Dossier. That is a sort of hand-drawn, started as a fanzine, still kind of is, but Drag City has published it since 2001, and comes all these trading cards and junk, and I interview weird old musicians and write up weird old comics I like, and been doing that. Galactic Zoo Dossier.
It's named after an Arthur Brown album?
Yes. It used to be a pretty obscure record, and now people know about records now.
Yeah.
So now there's slight confusion, but I got to interview Arthur Brown. I handed him a copy of it, and I was like, I hope it's cool that I use this. Like back in like 1996, I think is when I started it. And he was like, oh, yes, that's fine. You know, he could care less. So I was like, shoo, that's a big load off, you know, because you Google it and sometimes my stuff comes up before the album and I'm like, ooh, you know, but
Yeah.
they reissued it a couple years ago too with the poster.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Nice.
Hung it up
What
somewhere.
are you issuing to us here on the pod today?
Well, Yes, who cares what I do? Let's move on to an
Harsh.
important record. No, that was harsh against myself.
I know.
We're self-depreciating in the Midwest. Everyone knows that, right?
That's true.
That is our style.
It's a way
Isn't
of life.
it?
Yeah.
Isn't it? Right? So we need beautiful, soft, orchestrated pop records to lift us out of our Midwest landlocked quagmire.
And it's February, the worst month.
Yeah, I mean, it's the sun's out at least, right? We're grateful.
True.
It was February when we recorded this.
Oh, now I got to get rid of all this.
No, I'll keep it.
Edit.
It's February 29th that we're recording this.
Yes, leap year. So yes, that'll bring us to Bread on the Waters, and it's a very West Coasty looking record with the sea and sunset and all that, and it looks like it's warm wherever they are. Yes, 70s often categorized as soft rock band Bread on the Waters, but they were so much more than just soft rock.
Well, would you like to play a cut to get us primed for all this?
Yeah. Let's see. Do we launch into the rocker that's going to surprise everyone, or do we ease people in a little bit?
Well, that's up to you. You're the captain of this.
Let's just do the
this
first
trip.
cut off the record.
All right.
Perfect. What's the name of
It's
that
got
track?
it's got a little bit of everything.
It's a pretty diverse record from what
It
I-
really actually it is. There is indeed things you would call soft rock or whatever, but why do you keep me waiting?
Does this count as yacht rock, or does it predate yacht rock? Is it proto yacht rock? Is that what we're listening to?
Yacht rock. The YR term. I guess if you were to call these guys anything, it would probably be soft rock, but I really think it's more just like West Coast pop of the 70s. I mean, do people call Crosby, Stills and Nash yacht rock?
I have not heard them.
See, they get
such.
they get a pass. It's folky, hippie, Topanga Canyon rock, whereas which is what I kind of think Bread is, more or less, in their diverse thing. But sometimes I think the yacht rock term is sort of used to put down some good bands in that it like sort of trivializes, like people say Hall & Oates yacht rock, ha ha ha, and it's like, no, Hall & Oates are good.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
not something to just snicker about.
Blue-Eyed Soul.
It's great, Blue-Eyed Soul. Daryl Hall's probably one of the best Blue-Eyed Soul singers who ever lived.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you grew up and just heard the 80s version of it, but like, it's actually good music, and Daryl Hall was a cool dude. So don't lump it in with Loggins and Messino so much, or like some of these. I mean, I guess, would that typify as Loverboy yacht rock? I mean, I guess as anything, they're on a yacht and they're like sniffing some coke wearing a white suit or something, right? Is that that's what it comes from, right?
Yeah.
But it somehow just become this firm genre, and I'll hear even the MeTV, the local radio station, does a yacht rock Saturday night, and I'm like, damn it, they are playing a Bread song, and I don't think this is just like sky sniffing coke on a boat. I think this is actually some good impassioned music.
Yeah, well, that cut we just heard had some fuzz guitar going on. It was pretty. It almost sounded like something that could have been on Nuggets.
Totally. I don't think it's that far from that, or Moby Grape or something
Yeah,
like that.
very much
I don't
so.
really think it's that far from that. And my man David Gates, who writes most of their stuff, sort of the Svengali of the band. He's doing that lead fuzz guitar on that, which I didn't know until I did a little research. But he wasn't really the lead guitarist, but for that and the other kick-ass rocker on this record, he's doing the fuzz guitar. He had to step in and do that. My man Gates, who sadly he did solo stuff later on that veers very heavily on the ballady side, say like Eric Carmen, and people kind of put him in that ghetto of balladeer, but it's like, no, he actually had a cool rock band just like Eric Carmen had the Raspberries. And
So for people like me who know literally zero about Bread, can you give like just a quick primer on like where are they from and like what year is this? It feels very late 60s to me.
Yeah,
I don't know.
This is 70s, so there's always a little bit of a hangover from the decade before, and 70 through 72, really. I guess David Gates is originally from Tulsa, but he was a big player, West Coast guy. I guess he had an early band called the Accents with Leon Russell.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like young Leon, when he was using his other real name, I guess. And I think he wrote a big smash hit when he was really young called Popsicles and Mermaids. That was kind of like an instrumental type or like girl group hit. So he was kind of like a young wonderkind. I mean, I kind of would put him in almost with like a Brian Wilson kind of guy, because he was doing stuff with Brian, with Phil Spector and stuff when he was really young, and he wrote stuff for the Monkees. He was kind of like doing a lot of stuff early on, and then I think he had kind of this very clear, very melodic vision. And I mean, I guess some people say Bread is just like him and some guys or whatever, but another guy in the band was in this Sunshine Pop band, the Pleasure Fair, that he produced. I think people kind of saw them as sort of like maybe this sellout thing of the early 70s. Again, CSN gets a pass, Bread doesn't, but just guys wearing denim, singing these kind of like laid back songs, and their hits veer a bit on the worst, I would say, saccharine of it,
that's the word.
Yes. Okay, baby, I'ma want you. There's the first big hit on this record is Make It With You.
Yeah.
Which you did recognize.
Yeah.
And I think it's a nice song, actually, but it got a lot of rotation, and the moms probably cried to it and such,
I got a little misty. I won't lie.
It's a misty one.
Yeah.
But Bread didn't last all that long. They just lasted to the early 70s and had a couple reunions, and there was some lineup shakes and shakeups too. But, they were a commercial, radio-friendly, veering on the soft California breezy side of pop.
I'm sure that you'll probably talk more about some of the stuff in David Gates' resume as we go, because there's some very interesting stuff in there that people would probably not expect. How long was Bread around, though, as a band?
I think they only made it until like 76, 73, and then they reformed a couple times.
Okay.
Yeah, because he went solo in 73. Yeah, they played their last show at Salt Palace in Salt Lake City, Utah, May 1973. But then I think, there were a couple reunions here and there, but he had a pretty successful, 76, they did another record.
Okay.
Actually, they came back. And I kind of think in a perfect world, he would even be at least as beloved as like a Terry Melcher kind of guy or something like that, as a sort of Svengali of melodic pop, or Kurt Becher, or like one of those.
Oh yeah, from the Millennium.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think because of how popular a select certain style of songs his were, he gets lumped in a totally different category.
Definitely.
Well, is there another track we should sample?
All right, we'll do a softer Gates. Actually, I think this song's sort of like, I'd call it rural acid folk, but I don't know if everyone would agree with me. I've definitely heard records that sound like this go for like a lot of money.
Right,
but let's do side 2 first track. I Want You With Me, and this is one I always would put on mixtapes for people, and they'd always be like, "Damn, it's pretty cool, actually."
You had mentioned earlier that you've heard records that sound similar to this that go for big money. And I think that's such an interesting concept. I think that's one of the most common things I hear at record shows from some of the old heads who've been selling vinyl for a long time is just this idea that, yeah, rare records are cool and there's some awesome obscure stuff with interesting stories that go for hundreds, thousands of dollars. There's also plenty of dollar records that are literally just as good.
I mean, I saw you guys did I Love You by
Jimmy Spheris.
Jimmy Spheris.
Yes,
And
that
like,
was our
from what I
first.
understand, there's a heavy tale behind that record. I think it can be just as interesting for
Mhm.
sure. And I
Mhm.
don't think value equals, I mean, it's all based on rarity. I mean, I've heard records that go for, it's like, oh, it's the rare. I mean, the rarest Vertigo record is like this band Ben that's like jazz fusion. And when I heard it, I was just like, this is the one that's worth like thousands of dollars. I mean, it's not totally my thing, and I was like, it's okay for what it is, but it's just rare.
Yeah.
Yeah,
know?
definitely.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's quality of the music is a very subjective thing, and I guess rarity is to an extent, but it can be quantified a little bit more, so that's why that happens. But then there's ones that are pretty common, but just command more value than others due to, artist recognition, name, and for whatever reason, David Gates, despite some of the people he worked with and some of the things he did, he just hasn't quite gotten there yet.
It's not there. I couldn't find my copy of Van Morrison Moondance the other day, and I'm like, oh, I guess I lost it somehow. And I'm like, I guess I'll just go get a new one for like $5. And guess what? It's $25
Oh,
now,
yeah, definitely.
And I was like, dang. So Van, he's up there, and he should be. He should be. He's one of the greats. But Gates ain't there. Well, I mean, also, is there more copies of this record out there than Moondance? I don't think so.
No,
There's
probably
probably
not.
just as many. They both had mega hits. Actually, Moondance probably has more mega hits on it.
Yeah, it has Caravan and Crazy Love and the title track. And I don't know if In It Stone Me was one, but that's a lot of songs that people know right there.
Yeah. And I feel like I used to pass it up at the thrift store like every crazy, It would just be like Moondance. Same with Fleetwood Mac Rumors. It would be copy after copy of it at the thrift store. And that's a $20-$25 record now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like within just the last few years,
Yeah.
it's gotten to that point.
Yeah, I remember buying Tusk for 50 cents a dollar.
Yeah, nobody wanted that one. I still wasn't sure anyone did.
That's
No,
enough
I like
Fleetwood Mac, guys. What happened to
Okay.
David Gates? What happened to him? Why
All
isn't
right.
he famous?
So I did have one question about this album. Was Bread a solidified band where they were the ones recording all the stuff on the record, or was the studio musicians working with David Gates?
They were a real group as far as I know. I mean, it's funny you say that because I know one member was replaced with a member of the Wrecking Crew later on.
Well, I was gonna
Larry
say, like,
Knechtel. Yeah.
He was buds with Brian Wilson and Leon Russell. Like, he had to be traveling in that Wrecking Crew circle, and most of that
Yeah.
West Coast stuff of that time period, and the sound was like all Wrecking Crew.
Well, I did notice too that he doesn't write every song on the record too. James Griffin, the lead singer guy, is writing quite a few. So we shouldn't even say just Gates here, But I got a little thing for Gates, and I think he deserves more props. And I even like his soppy soft rock solo stuff. I feel like I'm on a crusade. But actually, this first record, he's co-writing a lot with people, and then, I mean, he is writing the best tunes on the record. I will say that.
Did he
but-
produce this album, did you say?
Yes.
He did
Yeah.
produce it, because he had been doing production work for years before this, right?
Yes.
I really liked on that last track we heard when that acoustic lead came in about halfway through. It was very upfront, like kind of almost unexpectedly for an acoustic lead. And if anyone else, I think Sean kind of glanced at me. when
Yeah,
that
there
came
was
in.
a few points where you think you know where the song's going, and there'll just be this little element that jumps in for a second. It's a little bit louder in the mix to kind of make it interesting and take a few slight turns. I liked it.
Yeah, it's a kind of a dreamy, rural, slightly countrified thing, which I feel
Yeah.
like people are a little more open to now. But I threw out Relatively Clean Rivers. It's not that far from that very rare record, or I mean, it's really not that far from like American Beauty era Grateful Dead or something like that too.
Mhm.
Like that, which is a little more deified perhaps than Bread. Actually, most Dead fans would be horrified if you compared them to Bread, I think, because they're seen as a very commercial, not hippie band,
I saw a recent Hard Times article that was something along the lines of Grateful Dead fans shocked to learn there are other bands in existence.
That was like me and the Doors in junior high. I was like, Doors, bootleg, Doors. And then I was like, maybe I should check out some of the other bands like from their scene. And I was like, Love. Oh, Moby Gray. Oh, just West Coast stuff. And I was like, okay, there's more out there. There's a lot of good stuff.
I think Arthur Lee is responsible for the Doors getting signed to Elektra.
Yeah, he regretted it later too.
Really?
Because he thought they were gonna jump to another label, and he was like, "Here, I'm gonna like make it easier for you, and here's a new rock band for you," so he could be off the hook. It didn't work out with the other label, and then they had to come crawling back, and they didn't care about them because the Doors were blowing up so hard. So he kind of created a monster.
That's unfortunate, and obviously, Forever Changes is a revered record, but it's still more of it's a kind of a little more esoteric than anything the Doors did, or a little more under the radar.
Yeah,
and
people say the Soft Parade was an attempt to sort of mimic it, but I don't know if that's really true. They were trying sweets and strings and all that stuff. I could see it, but because supposedly Jim loved Arthur Lee, but I don't know if it's true.
What about David Gates, though?
Well, do we want to play another track, and then is there another selection you'd like to play, and we can come back and talk more about David Gates? Because there's still a big detail I want to get to.
Oh, I know. Well, okay, here, maybe this will make that seem more relevant. So here's the unexpected rocker on the record. I guess if anyone Bread is compared to is CSN, which I threw out a couple times. The harmonies, you can hear a little bit of the Graham Nash and stuff, but I personally think this rocks harder than any CSN song I've ever heard. And it's called Blue Satin Pillow, which doesn't really sound like a song that would rock. I think that's side 1, track 3. Are we allowed to swear on this podcast?
Yeah.
I call this one a shit kicker. I call this some shit kicking rock.
I did preview this once you told us that this was going to be your selection, and I had a pretty strong feeling you were going to feature that one. And that one is just above and beyond. I feel like it's just going into territory I never would have expected to hear on a Bread album.
I didn't expect it either when I bought it. I remember I was like, damn, he's like wicked fuzz, and that's Gates doing those fuzz leads again on that one. And that one to me really has kind of like a Moby Grape feel or something like that, or it sounds like a couple years earlier or something.
Yeah,
almost,
like 67, 68.
This might have been recorded earlier. I'm not sure, you know.
Yeah, definitely has that SoCal late 60s vibe on tracks
like
like
a
that.
jaunty unpolishedness that I wouldn't have expected from the very little I knew about Bread coming into this. So
there you go. I think this one on the Waters, from what I've been able to experience, like their most diverse album, like as far as like sort of covering all the bases. Like actually after this is still side 1, the 2 or 3 songs after this, I swear they're kind of proggy. There's like keyboards and sort of like a lot of tricky changes, probably because he was an arranger, songwriter guy, for many years and stuff. Yeah, it just kind of goes all over the place.
So who are some of the artists that he had worked with either prior to this or after?
I know you're dying for this one. Yes. He produced, is it the first Captain Beefheart single?
It's the A&M sessions. Well,
Yeah.
it's what they're now known as the A&M sessions.
Right,
So
right.
Diddy Wah Diddy, I believe, was David Gates.
Yeah.
And there's a number of other songs from those sessions. And I remember, is it Doug Moon? Was he a member of the band, the Magic Band early on? I remember him in the Beefheart documentary that I believe the BBC did, that when A&M were first picking up the Magic Band, that they really kind of wanted to push them in that David Gates and Bread direction.
Yeah. Wow.
And it just wasn't going to fit. And I think there's some remnants on the first proper Beefheart album, Safe as Milk.
That's the most commercial one.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And so I had known that Gates had produced that. Who else did he do around that same time, though? Who else had he produced?
Let's see. I know it's a pretty diverse cast from what I remember. Well, so yeah, I guess his early band, The Accents, backed Chuck Berry.
Really?
So throw that into the mix, in like 1957.
Oh, wow.
So that's an interesting one. Pat Boone. So then he went from Chuck Berry to Pat Boone to Captain Beefheart, basically. Yeah, Popsicles and Icicles. That was his first big hit. Wrote songs for the Monkees. Elvis, heard of that guy? Bobby Darin. Oh yeah, Glenn Yarbrough, which I guess was actually a pretty big hit. Baby, the Rain Must Fall. See, got around.
Yeah.
I think that was most of his early stuff.
Pre-Bread.
Pre-Bread.
And what did he do post-Bread, aside from solo work? Is he...
As far as I know, he pretty much... Oh, I guess Jack Jones recorded a Bread tribute album, Bread Winners, in 1972. What weird.
Pretty early on.
Yeah, that is actually.
Bread
Actually, it looks like...
Winners.
Oh, yeah. And Telly Savalas had a hit with one of their songs, too. If in 75, I think just in the UK. So that is interesting. I mean, as far as I know, he really only had the solo career. Oh, he recorded a duet with Melissa Manchester. That's weird. Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, he only had the solo career, but he might have gone on to produce some stuff. I'm not sure, actually.
Yeah, I guess I just wasn't really sure if his name sort of seems to disappear from the conversation 80s and beyond.
Yeah, it looks like 81 is his last record, Come Home for Christmas.
Okay.
So I think he's still with us, right?
I don't think David Gates has passed along.
No. Yeah, he's like 80.
Yeah, if he was playing with Chuck Berry
In 57. Yeah. So yeah, he's still with us. I just think he retired after that and probably was doing just fine.
Yeah, he maybe invested well and
Yeah.
just sitting on that pile of bread.
sitting on his yacht.
No yachts. Maybe he does. Maybe he has one. I wouldn't be surprised if he had one.
Well, if we've, I don't know if we want to say anything else about David Gates or bread, or if there's anything else.
He's been married to his same wife since 1959.
Okay, so not your usual rock star.
Oh, he went into the cattle ranching business.
What?
He lives happily with his wife in Mount Vernon, enjoying his retirement.
Wow.
Very nice.
All right.
But yeah, it looks like he studied the cattle ranching business while touring with Bread, purchased a 1,400-acre cattle ranch financed by royalties he earned with the group.
Nice.
So I think he did okay for himself.
Yeah. Just living the dream, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think he blew it on like drink and drug like a lot, like maybe the aforementioned Gordon Lightfoot might have.
Yeah. Yeah, he invested wisely, did his thing, and got out.
I bet too he probably owned his own publishing, so like Telly Savalas covering his stuff and doing a big hit probably helped him out a lot.
Yeah.
And that AM Gold royalties that are still chugging in, I'm sure.
I didn't realize, but like Bob Dylan sort of first got rich, not really from himself, but just other people doing his publishing. He had a good publishing deal. So every time Frank Sinatra was doing his songs.
Mhm.
So it was like he just got some bucks every time he had a good contract.
It's a good
Smart
one.
guy.
Yeah, that's a good way to go. I guess leads to a career of longevity.
Yeah, and then if you got a good a strong arm manager really pushing your publishing, I mean, people would cover his songs before they came out.
Yeah.
Well,
that's when you talked with Ian Matthews, which that hasn't come out yet, that
interview.
But they obviously Fairport Convention were getting songs of his that were unreleased or hadn't come out yet, and they were, was it Percy's song they did on Legion Leaf as the album, I believe, and you do like 3 or 4 Dylan songs on that record, I think, and they were all ones that ended up on like the Basement Sessions and this and that.
That Great White Wonder bootleg or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So for people that are maybe just now getting into bread from listening to this, how do you feel about their other records? Is this the only one that you fully back, or?
Well, the thing is, I'll admit, not every record is 100% consistent, but that's the joy of the dollar bin record, right? And
True.
I mean, I remember me and my old bass player, we definitely had a system where we'd be like, that's a good $2 record. That's a good $3. And that basically was like, it's got 3 or 4 good songs on it,
Sure.
Or whatever. So like, if you can handle the hits, I do like the first record a lot. I think it's really consistent, the self-titled. Yeah, I think there's gold on all their albums.
Do you have any overall bargain bin cruising tips for people? Like what's something you look for? What's going to make you pick up a record?
That's a good question. I mean, Bread were on Elektra Records, and as we were discussing, most stuff on Elektra is pretty consistent. There's some duds. They did a lot of early folk stuff that some of it's not that special in my book. But I think like looking at labels that are, like that are sort of very consistent and being like, I don't know what this is on that label. Or if you want to go on the next notch, if you see something on a tiny label you've never heard of, that might be worth checking out too, because it could be something obscure and weird, but it could also just be a really bad religious record that, One thing I've also kind of learned over the years is if you don't know what the heck it is, look how many people are on the record. If there's about 20, 30 people on the record playing every instrument known to man, it's usually not good.
Okay.
It's usually not what you're looking for. It's like, oh, there's a giant horn section.
Yeah.
There's 20 session, unless it's like a Phil Spector record where they wouldn't list all those people,
right.
generally playing on it. I've put stuff back that I'm just like, too many people on this.
Yeah.
Something I learned doing the Janice Ian episode is that I believe she was one of the first musicians that actually credited all the players on her album in the liner notes and the sleeves. Like she was said to really buckle down on them, but then gave them credit for it.
Yeah, right. She was a young tyrant.
Yeah, you're a big Janice Ian.
Oh
fan,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. At least the first like 3 or 4 records.
Yeah.
And those are all still really cheap.
Yeah, everything she does goes for cheap, but it's brilliant. But we already did an episode on her, so
check it out, folks. Janice Ian, she's cool.
Are there any instruments, if you see credit on a record, that are going to pique your interest?
If you see like there's an ARP or a Moog or something crazy,
Sure.
it could be some disco or something too, but and it could be used very tastefully. But if you see something weird, sitar, something like that, maybe you might, if you're looking for like weirder / psychedelic stuff or something, which I'm not always.
And we want to put this out there to our listeners now, a discussion we had before we hit record. If you know what the spherical synthesizer that I from the Boredoms played is called, please message us at idbuythatpodcast@gmail.com. And Steve, Plastic Crimewave Krakow, wants to know too.
I want to know. We went from bread to the Boredoms. They'd be filed in the collection together. Yeah.
Was there any other stuff you did before I so rudely chopped you off earlier you wanted to mention?
Oh, God. No, you weren't rude. Oh, geez, I don't know. I book some shows. I'm a jack of all trades, I guess. I don't, as I said, I guess I'm a freelancer, so I do a lot of illustration stuff, album covers and posters for bands.
You have a Wikipedia page. You're like,
I guess.
You're big news, buddy.
Oh, boy.
Don't try and dodge it. Don't play yourself down.
Sometimes I'm stunned who doesn't have one. I mean, but like someone who I consider...
None of us
well, a lot of people I consider much more famous. I'll look up some musician and I'm like, oh my God, they don't even have a Wikipedia page. This is criminal.
And then you end all contact with them at that point, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, that's not
the
cool.
gauge.
You just send them a one-sentence text. You are beneath me.
followers do they have on Instagram? What? It's in the 3 digits? I'm out of here.
Yeah.
To our listeners right now, Steve is actually 3 floors above us, and he has glass between each floor, and he looks down upon us. So we're not in the same room as him, but he is talking to us. So
And I
we're
had my
highly
publicist
honored.
handle everything for this whole thing, too. I couldn't be bothered.
That's true. She's across the room scowling at us right now for
It's taking
even
too long
mentioning this
because
stuff.
People Magazine's on the phone, and I really got to take this call, guys.
Well, thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to sit down with a few Midwest Kalamazoo podcasters and talk about bread.
Yeah.
It's been wonderful.
I mean, I feel like bread and soft rock in general must have been beloved in the Midwest because these records are everywhere. And I do remember my mom's light rock station, which is probably where all this comes from. That's what they used to call it. Light rock. It wasn't yacht. It wasn't soft. It wasn't any of these sort of posthumously named things. It was light rock.
Tell us how you feel about America, their catalog.
I do love America. And some people think bread in America. Someone I saw the other day, snarky internet person, was like, aren't they the same band? And I was like, no.
Very different.
One was produced by George Martin in England, for Christ's sakes, and one was David Gates in California.
Yeah.
But people don't know these things. I feel sorry for them. But
For
yeah, my mom's light rock station, WFYR, The Fire, definitely played hella bread. Definitely played all America, all these bands, you know. And again, as we were saying earlier, the songwriting, production values, quality of playing, the warmth of the way it's all recorded, the very cool artwork that's on a lot of these records, it just can't really be made. You can put it down all you want, you know, but yeah, it is music made by real people, as someone said, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's music made by real people for real people. Yeah.
Yes.
And, you know, out here in the Midwest, we need something to get us through these long, dark, bleak winters.
It's true. Something comforting.
Just got to give in to the light rock. Let it carry you through.
To the light. Look to the light.
All right, we'll cuddle up with a warm blanket of bread and light your
You know what I
fireplaces.
personally think? If they had picked a different name, maybe they would be beloved more. I think people just, and I did as a youth too. I was like, bread? What's that? That sounds so bland.
Yeah.
You know, it just, I made me think of white bread. And
Yeah.
I think if maybe, you know, or people think of money or that it was crass, you know, it's
Yeah.
like, I think if they had just been,
They
you know,
should've-
their names,
They
you
should have
know,
called themselves Crass.
yeah, crass, you know, or just like the guys in the in the band's names. If it had been like Gates, Royer, Griffin, and Butts, you know, then it could have been a hit, maybe, you know. But
Hamilton, Joe Frank, and Reynolds.
yeah, I thought of those guys too. I feel like they tried a lot of those because CSM was so huge. They
Yeah.
were like, let's get a bunch of 3 also ran guys who were in kind of big bands, put them together, and maybe they'll have a hit too. And I feel like it didn't work for too many. But
No.
for some reason, Hamilton, Frank, and Reynolds, boy, those records are everywhere.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for having us in your
Layer?
far out layer here. It's like simultaneously like anxiety inducing with all the stuff, but also comforting. It's very nice. Thank you for having us here, Mr.
Oh,
Steve.
yes. I've gotten all different reactions. Some people say straight up anxiety. Some people are like comfort, you know. It depends.
It's like the swirling of both for me.
When I
Which-
leave and go out of town for a while and I come back, I'm like, what the hell is all this stuff in here? What am I doing? But you get used to it.
Yeah, I've been looking at this Magic Powerhouse of Oz poster
There
right
you
above your head.
go. Signed by Kenneth Anger.
Yeah,
Oh my
that's
God.
wild.
All right.
We
Thanks.
told
fellas.
Jeremy before coming here that he's not allowed to mention that he hopes you never have to move.
Oh, that's right. I was going to say that right when I introduced myself to you.
You forgot.
That
I hope
is
you
the-
never have to move, Steve.
That is the mantra. That is a mantra I've heard many times over the years. Set your watch by it. Let's see. They've been here 30
Yep.
seconds. You got it. Okay. Yes.
All right, is there a track you'd like to go out on?
Oh, should we close on a wistful soft Gates number?
Carry us into the breeze.
Carry us into the breeze. This, you know, kind of what he would go on to do. Let's do the last song on the album, The Other Side of Life. I know, I'm making you work hard and do some flipping here.
So this has been I'd Buy That for $1. My name is Peter Cook.
My name is Jeremy Ruggles.
I'm Sean Hartman.
Steve Krakow, a.k.a. Plastic Crimewave.
Pow.
So as you go to find yourself, don't look too hard. You may pass.
I'd buy that podcast.com. I'd buy that podcast at gmail.com. Find us on Instagram, Facebook. I don't want to give it an intro. I'm just going to say the things.
Yeah.
Like us, comment, Instagram, Facebook.
No nonsense. Just right down to business.
Just Spotify.
Straight, uncut dope.
Apple Podcasts. Thanks. I'd buy that for $1.
Yep. We love you.